Namaste and welcome to Happiness Factors Podcast, everyone. The show where we talk about success, entrepreneurship, mental wellness, neuroscience, and occasionally surviving adulthood without throwing the laptop out of the window. Or in my case, it's a MacBook. I'm Anita, and together we are exploring what it really means to thrive without burnout, with some humor, some laughter, and thrive through life. So let's get started. And today, I'm very excited to introduce Michael Gates, husband, father of five, lifelong Californian. How many of them are there, right? Attorney and an accomplished public servant. From defending complex cases in the courtroom to serving a decade as Huntington Beach City attorney and later helping oversee major civil rights and enforcement efforts at the U.S. Department of Justice, Michael has built a career around law, public service, and protecting the communities. Currently, he's running to become California's next Attorney General. And don't we need him? We are excited to learn more about the person behind the title. So let's dive deep into the conversation. So thank you, Michael, for making the time in your busy schedule to talk to our listeners at Happiness Factors Podcast. What would you like to share about yourself and your campaign and your background with the listeners?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to your audience. As you know, this is an important time in California, very, very important time, because we know that politically, even beyond politics, but in the community, a lot of people are expressing concerns about what's going on in California. Excuse me, whether it's the high crime rates or the corruption, whatever it is. People are very, very upset, and frankly, they're holding our leaders in Sacramento, Governor Newsom, and also Attorney General Rob Bonta. They want to take them to task and hold them accountable. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the polling, 65% of Californians in the polls say that California is headed in the wrong direction. And that's a very high number. That means that everyday Californians are pretty fed up with what's going on in California, and they're looking for a change. 65% represents change. And I am that change. I jumped in this race for Attorney General after serving in Washington, D.C. for the administration for a year. As you said, I was the city attorney of Huntington Beach for 10 years before that. And we can talk about, in this interview, we can talk about what I did in Huntington Beach for everyday Californians, where I was known as a fighter for everyday Californians, not only because I represented them well, but because I rolled up my sleeves and I went to court and I fought for them in front of judges and in front of juries. I literally went to court on nearly every case involving the city of Huntington Beach, and I was fighting for everyday Californians. And so we were very, very successful in Huntington Beach. My leadership on being tough on crime and enforcing the law was very, very effective. But beyond that as well, like you mentioned, I've been married for almost 30 years. My wife and I celebrated, yes. My wife and I just celebrated our 29th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. We have 5 beautiful children, and we also have 4 grandchildren. Excuse me. And so it's really the future of California that we're concerned about. As you said, I'm a lifelong resident of Huntington Beach. I have been a very, very successful career lawyer, both on the civil side and also on the criminal prosecution side. I've been in elected office for a number of years, and I even worked in the Trump administration. So excuse me, I know we're going to get into a lot of detail about what I have done, but I just want everybody in the audience to know I am not a career politician. I am not a professional politician. I am very, very blessed. My family has been blessed. God has blessed us tremendously also in my career with some amazing, amazing experiences in my legal profession. And now I think I'm perfectly situated to run for office of Attorney General. I actually know how to do the job because I did a lot of the same work in my prior service as city attorney of Huntington Beach, but also working for the United States Department of Justice last year. And so I just feel blessed and very, very prepared to take on this role and to take on this challenge. And I do know, I'm very, very confident, Anita, that we can return California to a law and order state. So I'm ready for this. I'm excited about this. I'm passionate about this, and I know we can win.
Totally. And I totally agree with you that California under Newsom has gone really, really bad. Like for me, like I'm an immigrant from India, and I used to feel so safe, even like going dancing with friends and coming back late at night. No more. I don't
Yeah.
step out of the house without a pepper spray or something because so many of my friends have gotten attacked.
Yeah.
So it's become like really bad.
Yeah, and the problem, just what you are saying now is what so many Californians say, and basically what I remind them is like, look, if you're afraid to leave your home,
Yeah.
then you're not experiencing freedom. Like this is not America, right? Everybody comes here for the American dream. Part
Hmm.
of the American dream is to prosper in their business if they work hard. Part of their American dream is to get a good education. But part of their American dream is to live in a free society where they can experience freedom, truly experience freedom.
Totally.
And the bottom line is fundamentally, if we don't have public safety and people are afraid to leave their home, then
Yeah.
they're not fully experiencing the American dream. They're not experiencing freedom. So I'm a big proponent of the rule of law. I'm a big proponent of law and order. I'm a major advocate for public safety, and I believe that everyday Californians should be free and safe in their communities to walk the streets, to work their businesses, and to have their small mom and pop businesses thrive in their business districts. And right now we don't have that because we are lawless in California, because the Attorney General Rob Bonta is a lawless person. He is a career politician.
Mhm.
Excuse me. He was appointed as our Attorney General in 2021 by Newsom. Before that, he was 10 years working in the legislature as a career politician. He is not a real lawyer. He does have a law degree, but he's never stepped foot in the courtroom. I, on
Yeah.
the other hand, have tried many multi-million-dollar cases in court at trial. I am a trial attorney, an experienced trial attorney. I've also argued at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on a number of occasions, the State Court of Appeals. I'm even admitted to the United States Supreme Court. So if called upon to argue a case tomorrow back in Washington, D.C., I could appear before the United States Supreme Court and argue because I'm certified, I'm qualified to make the argument there. Rob Bonta is none of these things. And we have lawlessness in California because he's not a real lawyer. He's operating as a career politician. I, on the other hand, am a real lawyer. I have done this work myself already. And when I become the Attorney General for the state of California, we can make California safe again.
Oh, that would be really amazing because even in my neighborhood, and I live in a really good neighborhood in the Bay Area, like it used to be so safe, like you would see people like walking in the middle of the night in the park.
Yeah,
But now as soon as it gets dark, my neighbors tell me, oh, go home.
yeah,
It's getting dark. It won't be
yeah,
safe anymore, right? So
right.
we look out for each other. But the thing is, because of all the, mm, I won't just say that illegals, but also like because the law and order has gone so much down, people are invading people's
Yeah,
homes
yeah,
and it's people don't feel safe walking around
yeah.
anymore,
And
especially
and let
after.
me address that real precisely. So law and order is a real thing, public
Yes,
safety is a real thing, and as we all know, crime is a real thing.
totally.
So according to FBI data, if you look at the violent crime statistics, according to the FBI, Rob Bonta is our top law enforcement officer in the state of California. He's responsible for public safety. According to that FBI data on violent crime, Rob Bonta's California is one of the most dangerous states to live in. It is ranked number 6,
Mhm.
highest in crime in the entire nation out of 50 states. So it's
Wow.
ranked number 6, highest in crime. It's one of the most dangerous states to live in the entire country. On the other hand, when I was the city attorney of Huntington Beach, and Huntington Beach is a large city. It's the 23rd largest city in the entire state of California out of nearly 500 cities. When I was the city attorney, we were so tough on crime that I made Huntington Beach one of the safest cities in the entire state of California out of nearly 500. So you compare that to Rob Bonta. Rob Bonta's state of California is one of the most dangerous states, but my city, under my leadership, became one of the safest cities in the entire state out of nearly 500. And guess what, Anita? I enforce the same state laws on the books that are available to Rob Bonta. So
Okay.
I literally use the same laws, criminal laws on the books that are available to Rob Bonta. I enforced them and made Huntington Beach the safest city in the state of California. Rob Bonta will not enforce them, and therefore California is one of the most dangerous states to live in the entire country.
No, totally. And people are totally fed up. So many of my friends already left to for Florida or Texas or some other state, and many others are planning on leaving. So, and it's all because of the safety, because everyone wants their family to be safe and
Yeah,
themselves to be safe
yeah.
rather than get attacked. So, Tell me, when did you decide like you want to run for the office, and what made you wake up one day and say, you know what, I think running is a good idea?
So when I was the city attorney of Huntington Beach, as you may know, I was fighting for everyday Californians who lived in Huntington Beach. I was fighting for my city, but in some ways I was fighting for my state of California. I knew things were headed on the wrong path. When crime was going up everywhere, I doubled down on fighting crime. I actually started a city level criminal prosecutor program in 2017, and that's how we reduced crime so dramatically. I also was the advocate and the proponent. I was the architect of Huntington Beach's voter ID law. So the local voter ID law was my idea. It was my handiwork, and we adopted that law in Huntington Beach. I was also the architect of Huntington Beach's declaration that it's a non-sanctuary city. And so Huntington Beach is a non-sanctuary city. I've been fighting the state's sanctuary policies for years now, both with lawsuits and with local ordinances. I fought the state of California during the COVID lockdowns when they were shutting down our beaches. I've sued to open up our beaches again. And then I even sued the state of California and brought back $38 million from the state of California to Huntington Beach taxpayers by way of a lawsuit because the state was wrongfully withholding tax reimbursements from Huntington Beach taxpayers. So I have a long history of fighting Sacramento, including their high density housing mandates. I fought those for years. I've been fighting and fighting and fighting. And so after I served in Washington, D.C. for a year, and I was doing work at the national level, my heart, I really realized, was in California. I wanted to come back to Huntington Beach and fight for California again. And that's when I decided to jump in the Attorney General's race. So I made my announcement in January of this year that I was running for Attorney General. And so we've had great success ever since. We have got a long list of endorsements, great endorsements, including Rick Grinnell, who worked with the Trump administration for many years. He has endorsed me for statewide office. I also have many law enforcement agencies who have stepped up to offer their endorsement. Our fundraising has been going well. The community is really, really supportive. In fact, Anita, one interesting data point, we just had a June primary a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you know this, Anita, but I received more votes. So I got 3.3 million votes, and they're still counting.
Nice.
I received more votes in that election than any Republican candidate in a primary in any state in history. I literally got more votes than any Republican candidate in any primary in any state in history. I even beat Donald Trump in his primary in Texas, and I beat Donald Trump in his primary in California. I literally have received I set the record for the most votes for a Republican candidate in a primary election in any state in our nation. So it's pretty remarkable the amount of support that I've gotten, and we're really going to ride this momentum into November. And I think I'm very, very confident that we're going to win.
Nice. And I think so too, because you got the maximum number of votes, and I think people just need to be more aware.
Yeah.
Like, I was the one, I think, who was talking to Susan. I mean, she was talking to me about American for Hindus because I also lead the San Jose chapter for them as the president for that. But and they also endorsed you, and lots of minority groups have endorsed you because they want a change and they want to be safe and they want to have equal opportunity. So that brings me to my next question, which is twofold. So what is the biggest problem California is facing that's not getting resolved? And the other one is, like recently, like actually today only I was reading like Sundar Pichai, the Google CEO, was speaking at the commencement at Stanford. But many of the students did a walkout because they are convinced otherwise, right? Because he supports Israel or he's from India, because there are lots of India hate gaining momentum as well as Israel hate has been gaining momentum for a long, long time. So in this kind of scenarios for the minorities who are facing the hate without doing anything wrong, right? Like in Sundar's case, I think it was stupid for them to walk out because they won't ever get a job at Google. And Google is one of the biggest companies.
Yeah.
And he was just doing them a favor by sharing his experience that they can also be and do whatever they want, right?
Right.
So what kind of actions can California or any state take in these kind of situations, which is just like, I would say, misguided youth?
Yeah.
So doing things which is not in their best interests.
Yeah. So I think the youth is really, really important. And it's not, I don't say that just because it's election season. I truly believe that the minority groups and the youth groups The younger community, frankly, they are suffering the most from California policies right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's the high crime rates, so the high crime rates are hurting the minority groups, they're hurting the the most needy communities.
Yeah.
The most needy communities suffer the most from violent crime, right? So, and I will on day one, because I work as Attorney General, I work with all 58 counties. That's all 58 district attorneys' offices and all 58 sheriff's departments. I work with all 58 counties and their law enforcement agencies on a daily basis to reduce crime. So I can reduce crime on day one and make every city in the state of California as safe as Huntington Beach is. That's number one. Number two is the corruption, the waste, fraud, and abuse. A lot of the young people are looking at how irresponsible the older generations are, the older taxpayers are, and frankly, our government leadership in Sacramento, and they're shaking their head wondering, how could you basically punish the next generation with such irresponsibility, the waste, fraud, and abuse? We have nearly $500 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse throughout the state of California. That's $22,000 per taxpayer. And ultimately, that price is going to fall on the young people, and they know it. So I'm going to tackle waste, fraud, and abuse on day one. I am going to find those responsible, and I'm going to put them behind bars. I'm going to prosecute them, and I'm going to work to claw back that money, to use the criminal justice system to claw back that money, even if it's 10 cents on the dollar. I'm going to claw back that money and return it to the taxpayer. But also, the election integrity issue. That's something that Attorney General Rob Bonta, just like the waste, fraud, and abuse, and just like crime, he's been turning a blind eye to. In fact, now he's suing Shasta County for wanting to implement new election integrity measures. He sued or attempted to stop, and I think did stop, in fact, Riverside County Sheriff Bianco from looking into an election integrity issue from last year's special election into Prop 50. So those are, I think, some of the three big issues top of mind for many voters. But in terms of minority groups and the younger generation, they need to know that we do have discrimination in California for whatever reason. And honestly, I don't particularly understand the motivation, but I understand the solution. And the solution is that our Attorney General use the California Department of Justice. So the Attorney General is responsible and in charge of the California Department of Justice. Use the Department of Justice to stop discrimination, both in our education systems and our workplaces. And you wouldn't know this, Anita, but the California Department of Justice actually does have a civil rights division in it, but Rob Bonta just doesn't use it. So we see discrimination, frankly, everywhere, whether it's discrimination against the Jews, discrimination against the Hindus. We see discrimination against the Asian community. We see discrimination everywhere. Yet discrimination should be nowhere in California, because our Attorney General Rob Bonta should be doing his job, and he actually should be utilizing his Civil Rights Division in his Department of Justice to end discrimination everywhere, and he's absolutely not doing that. And I can guarantee you, I can tell your audience, I promise you, I absolutely will do that on day one. I have worked in civil rights litigation for years, and I just came from the Department of Justice, where I worked there for a year in the Civil Rights Division. So I fought discrimination there for a year. I fought in civil rights litigation before that. I understand what it means to prosecute those who discriminate and to correct systems that are broken, that discriminate against certain segments of our population and certain peoples of our society. So I know how to, I've already done all this before. I know how to do this on day one. We should return to a merit-based society, and the young people in our state need to know, look, if you get a good education and you work hard, we are going to make sure that you have opportunity and that you can prosper in the future. They do not feel that they have opportunity right now, and they do not think that they can prosper in the future. We need to change all that, and as Attorney General, I can change that.
Awesome. And also I think someone who gets into a Stanford or Berkeley is usually the Ivy League schools. They should not throw away their future just by getting misguided by whatever people, right? So
that's right.
They should be, I think there should be enough education to them about what's really happening and why it will impact their future career. They have the whole life ahead of them.
Yes.
So what does justice look like in 2026 to you?
So I want to return California to a law and order state. Like I said earlier, we are a lawless state. We are completely lawless because Rob Bonta is not acting as a lawyer. He's not acting as the top law enforcement officer in the state of California. He literally spent 10 years as a career politician before he was appointed as the Attorney General. And ever since he was appointed as Attorney General by Newsom in 2021, he's been functioning and operating as a career politician. He continues to even today. And so he's been running cover for corruption. He's been running interference on the truth and interference on justice. He's been running interference on criminal justice. I am going to end all that, and I'm going to return California to a law and order state. I always tell people that after I serve as Attorney General and I leave office, if people remember me for nothing else, I want them to remember me for one thing, that man returned California to a law and order state.
Wow, that will be amazing, because California is such a beautiful, and both with natural beauty as well as with the companies and the innovation. I wish that it could go back to what it was 10 years ago.
Yes.
It was so nice and with so much opportunity. So how do you balance public safety with individual freedom?
Well, it's really easy. You focus on the criminals and you punish the criminals and you hold them accountable. The problem with our society right now, and a lot of this comes from our leadership in Sacramento, specifically with our current Attorney General, Rob Bonta, he does not believe in the criminal justice system. He does not believe in holding criminals accountable. In fact, he actually is pretty proud to say that he believes that criminals are the victims and they only act out and commit crime because they are a victim of their circumstance or they are a victim of their upbringing. He actually believes that us, everyday Californians, conducting ourselves in regular society, we are victimizing criminals. We're the ones that are giving them cause or reason to act out and commit crimes against society, which is totally backwards, obviously. I do not subscribe to that philosophy. If I am the top cop in the state of California, I'm going to be very, very, very tough on crime, and we're going to go after criminals and we're going to hold them accountable, thereby rewarding everyday Californians. I want to have fewer victims in California. And the only way you can have fewer victims of crime in California is to be tougher on the criminals and hold them accountable, thereby protecting everyday Californians, thereby preventing victimization. We want to prevent victimization from crime.
Totally. And also, like, I've seen like lots of laws are getting passed here which are pro-crime, and they penalize the taxpayers.
Yes.
So what do you think about that? Like, do you think you will be able to influence that, or is it out of your realm?
Well, so the legislature obviously has to start doing the right thing and stop doing the wrong thing. And so, but it's really the Attorney General's responsibility as the top or the chief legal advisor to the state agencies. It's his responsibility to advise the legislature on what they should and should not do when it comes to criminal justice and criminal laws. And so I'm going to be very, very outspoken against the legislature when they are passing laws that put everyday Californians at risk. So that's the role of the Attorney General, to be very, very proactive. But then also, we can use the laws that are currently on the books to be tougher on crime. Like I said earlier, Huntington Beach is now one of the safest cities in the state of California, simply because we were tough on crime and enforced the same criminal laws that are on the books that are available to Rob Bonta now. So when I'm Attorney General, I'm going to make every city in the state of California as safe as Huntington Beach.
So what are the legal issues that keep you up at night?
Well, there's a lot of them, right? The fact that we have a lot of victims being created every day at the hands of criminals, like that bothers me tremendously. The fact that we are not Title IX compliant throughout the state of California. So when we send our young girls to school, we need to worry about whether they're going to be safe in our schools and our sports programs, because the school system, including our Attorney General, our governor, and our legislature, they are pushing young boys into young girl sports, and they are pushing young men into young women's sports. The fact that our young girls are not safe in our school systems and sports programs, that keeps me up at night. The fact that our Attorney General is now suing hospitals, including a children's hospital, to force them to perform trans surgeries on minors is a disgrace. It's so abhorrent. I'm going to put an end to that. I'm going to dismiss those lawsuits, and I'm going to notify the medical community when I'm Attorney General that if they continue to mutilate children, I will prosecute them under the criminal laws. So I'm going to be very, very proactive in defending the most vulnerable in our society. And these are the things that keep me up at night.
So that's really incredible, because I have a mental wellness startup called HappinessFactors, and we do know that kids don't know really what they want. They can come into peer pressure, and later on they can regret, like the gender affirming surgeries and things like that. So I mean, for me, I can't even understand how can someone make that a law, especially knowing that people can't even vote till,
Yeah.
till they're adults. So how
Yeah.
can they make a decision which is irreversible? Because right
Yeah.
now, so many people are suing the doctors and other people who did their surgery, and now they are grown up and they don't like it anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, the bottom line is this: if adults want to alter their body when they're
Yeah.
adults, that's one thing. But for parents and or school counselors and or medical doctors to make permanent decisions for young people who are 9, 10, 11, 12 years old is absolutely shocking.
Okay.
And those decisions, those life-altering decisions, should be made by consenting adults when they are of the right age, right? 18 years or older, not by other people making those life-altering decisions for them. Now, let's be abundantly clear. What we're talking about is a lot of medical therapy, right?
Yeah.
Medical therapy is addressing things of the body that are diseased or damaged or not healthy, right? That's real medical treatment. But what we have with the trans surgeries is we literally have doctors cutting off or altering healthy body parts on healthy bodies. And that is just that's antithetical to what the medical community should be doing. It's antithetical to what they went to school for. It's antithetical to medical history, the history of medicine. And so for the healthy bodies, healthy children to be mutilated by cutting off healthy body parts, it's just a disgrace. And as Attorney General, like I said, we're going to end the practice of suing doctors and hospitals to force them to perform trans surgeries. We're going to end that practice. I'm going to dismiss those lawsuits, and I'm actually going to be prosecuting doctors that mutilate our children.
Well, that's really commendable because kids need to be able to remain kids, right?
Right.
And grow up to whatever they want to grow up to. And like you said, like once they're adults, they can decide whatever they want to do.
Right.
So if elected, what would be your top 3 priorities on day one or maybe the first month?
Yeah, so on day one, I'm going to dismiss those lawsuits that Rob Bonta filed against hospitals, including a children's hospital, to force them to perform mutilation surgeries on children. I'm going to protect our children on day one. On number two, on day one, I am going to make sure that all of my district attorneys and all my sheriffs throughout the state of California know that we are going to be tough on crime. And the standard is going to be Huntington Beach. I want every city in the state of California to be as safe as Huntington Beach has been for the past 7, 8 years. And so I am going to make it well known to all my sheriff's departments and all my district attorneys that follow Huntington Beach's standard. We're going to work to make every city as safe as Huntington Beach. I'm also going to attack the corruption, the waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm going to start prosecuting those responsible for the waste, fraud, and abuse. And like I said, I'm going to use the criminal justice system to get that money back and to give it back to the taxpayer, frankly. But I'm also going to make sure that we're compliant with federal laws, including Title IX, like we talked about, to protect our young girls. But also the Second Amendment, the First Amendment. You know, this whole talk about the Stop Nick Shirley Act, that's also a disgrace. That's an attack on our First Amendment rights. That's an attack on our constitutional rights. This is America, and I am going to work aggressively to protect the constitutional rights of everyday Californians, not attack the constitutional rights of everyday Californians. So we're going to be compliant with all federal laws, but that includes federal immigration law and that includes federal election laws too. So I have a lot of work to do on day one. I gave you kind of a long list there, but there's a whole lot more than that to do as well, because we are lawless in California, and there's a lot of work to get us back to be a law-abiding state and to get us back to being a law and order state.
I totally agree with you. And like I'm an immigrant, but I'm a legal immigrant. So I had to go through so many checks and so many different things before I was able to get the permanent residentship and citizenship. So I think it's always good to have the proper immigration policies in place, because the people who take advantage of being illegal immigrants are usually more often than not criminals, because law-abiding people like to go legally wherever they go. They don't want to do illegal things and get into trouble. So I'm very happy that you are thinking about that, and you will implement the correct measures which need to be implemented in place. So what does success look like for you if you are elected the Attorney General and you are there for 4 years?
Well, like I said, when I leave office after serving,
Mm.
I want everybody to say to themselves or to think that that man returned California to a law and order state.
Nice.
So if I can accomplish that, where we are known in California as being law abiding again, that we have law and order again, that our communities are safe again, that our businesses can thrive in our business districts because our streets are safe again, that
Yeah.
our families do not feel that they are having to shelter in place just to avoid crime, if they can go out on the street, if they can go to their parks and go to their churches without feeling threatened, that's going to be success for me. So we're going to protect the most vulnerable in our society and return California to a law and order state.
Awesome. And also, one of the things, at least I've noticed in my local community in San Jose Bay Area, is that at 3 o'clock, kids are like leaving the school, and at 3 o'clock, the drug dealers are dealing the drugs on the street. And it was like unnerving for me. I had just gone for a meeting, right? I had to park in a public parking lot to go to my meeting, and then I saw this happening, and I had to walk in the middle of the road to avoid those drug dealers. So, what kind of things we can put in place that kids don't get that easy access to
Yeah.
drugs and other bad habits? Because if they get addicted, their life is over pretty much.
Yeah, so a lot of our streets are dangerous in part because our law enforcement officers, whether it's the local municipal police or it's the local sheriffs,
Yeah.
they're not being very, I guess, aggressive in their patrols, aggressive in monitoring the safety of our streets. They're not totally present. Part of it
Yeah.
is because they do not believe that there's going to be prosecution there to
Yeah.
follow through on their arrests. They believe oftentimes that their patrols, there's no point in their patrols, that
Mhm.
there's no value in going out and enforcing and trying to keep our streets safe, because they think, well, the prosecutors are either not going to prosecute these crimes, or they're just going to release them from jail and nothing's going to happen. I'm going to spend more time doing paperwork than the person is going to spend in jail, and so it's not worth it. But when I'm in office and I work with my sheriff's department and my district attorneys throughout the state of California, and I insist that we be tough on crime, here's my program. Not only is every city going to be as safe as Huntington Beach, but every prosecutor in the state of California is going to know that if they do not have a zero crime agenda in their jurisdiction, if they do not have an agenda to get to zero crime in their jurisdiction, they're not doing their job. I want every prosecutor to be so diligent and so firm and frankly so aggressive in prosecuting crime that their goal is to get to zero crime. When we have this, Anita, when we have this culture of public safety and this culture of being tough on crime, then you don't have the drug deals in the street. Why? Because these drug dealers are concerned that they're going to get caught. So
Yeah.
the best way to clean up our streets is to change the culture in law enforcement, to get back to law enforcement, to have a zero crime agenda in the state of California, and to give our patrol officers, whether they're sheriffs or their local police, the support
Yeah.
and the follow through that they need to be effective in doing their job. That's the secret.
Totally, because after I think defund the police, half of the police also got a little bit afraid of losing their job if, for example, if they're resolving a crime scene and someone gets killed, they are under trouble, even if
Right,
that person was a criminal. So
right,
I think they need to have enough safety net to do their jobs properly,
right,
and of course, not misuse their power, but do their jobs properly and know that they are able to prevent the crimes, like you said.
right,
So
right.
let's shift gears and let's go towards some modern challenges. Like, how should we think about AI privacy and the future of law?
Yeah, so that's obviously evolving. That's a work in progress. Every time people think they have an idea of what is going to happen with AI, a few months or a couple months go by, and then the conversation changes a little bit. Obviously, we're going to have laws and safeguards in place to protect people. First and foremost, my interest is in making sure that we protect the privacy and the constitutional rights of everyday Californians. And so, what we need to ensure is that our legislature is current and up to speed on what's happening with technology, and ensure that that technology is not a threat to everyday Californians and their privacy. We want to make sure that Californians ultimately do not have their constitutional rights compromised because of AI, and that they do not have their privacy rights compromised by AI. And so there's a lot of work to do on that front, but also at the same time, it's a little bit of a moving target, right? It's because the
Yeah.
technology keeps rapidly evolving and rapidly changing. So, but But my first and foremost, my priority is to protect the constitutional rights of everyday Californians.
Awesome. So, what does effective leadership look like to you in this day of polarization? Because the people who are on the left are ready to kill you if you say you are on the right, and the people on, I mean, I find my people on the right, those friends are much more understanding than the people on the left. So,
Yeah.
how can we make it the leadership effective in spite of this
Yes.
polarization?
Yes. So a lot of the issues that I'm dealing with, a lot of the problems that I have to tackle on day one as Attorney General, luckily for me, they're pretty much 80-20 issues, right? They're issues that 80% of Californians agree with me on,
Yes.
right? Like Rob Bonta is out there, for instance, like I said, suing hospitals to
Yeah.
force mutilation surgeries on children. Well, 80% of California disagrees with him. Like they don't
Totally.
like that, right? He's out there saying that we don't need to put additional measures in place to ensure election integrity. He's actually suing to stop additional measures being put in place at the local level to ensure election integrity.
That's
80%
bad.
of 80% of California disagrees with him, right? So
Totally.
luckily, what good leadership for me looks like tackling these problems. And
Mhm.
thankfully, I'm on the side of the 80 on the
Yeah.
80-20 issue. I just simply want to return California to a law and order state. And what that's going to mean for everyday Californians is that their communities are safe and their businesses can prosper and their young girls are safe in schools and sports programs. And our children are not being sex trafficked, or
Sure.
we end the human trafficking. I mean, there's a whole host of things, a whole variety of benefits, a whole host of benefits that come from returning to law and order. It's because we are lawless in California right now that we see so many problems. Everybody thinks like, oh, there's a million problems and we need to find a million solutions. And I keep telling people, actually, no, it's much simpler than that. Yes, we do have a million problems, but if we just returned
Yeah.
California to a law and order state, if we just restored California to a law and order state, most of these problems would go away. They would disappear overnight.
Totally. So, what's one thing that voters or the communities need more honesty about? Like they deserve
Um,
from the people who are in power.
Yeah, I think more regular communication from our state leadership would be helpful.
Yeah.
I think just more information about the status of crime and crime fighting, the more information about the fraud and the corruption, the waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, look, here's a perfect example. So Rob Bonta has been in office for 5 years. He's been the
Yeah.
Attorney General for 5 years. The nearly $500 billion that we're seeing in waste, fraud, and abuse has accumulated over the past 5 years, exactly the same time he's been in office. Yet the state auditor came out with a report just a few weeks ago that said that state leadership, including Rob Bonta, they were notified about the waste, fraud, and abuse years ago, and they did nothing about it. So there's a lot that's been going on in California where Rob Bonta, the Attorney General, has been covering for corruption. What we need is more transparency, we need
Sure.
more accountability, and we need people like myself in office to take swift and diligent action to bring justice to the wrongdoers and return California back to a law and order state on the one hand, but return it back to everyday Californians. Because what we have right now in Sacramento is we have, frankly, they're just elitists. They think they can do whatever they want in Sacramento and they're not accountable to the people. I want to work for everyday Californians, and frankly, I want to be held accountable when I'm in office. I don't plan to go to Sacramento to make friends. I actually plan to go to Sacramento, and I anticipate making a lot of enemies. Why? Because I'm going to fight for everyday Californians. I'm not going to fight as a career politician. I'm going to fight as an everyday Californian.
So that brings me to my next question. So I was recently actually talking to one of the senators from Maryland, and the thing is, she was fighting against the system. So they kept on levying like lots of attacks on her for the whole 4 years of her office. And so she was really, really, I mean, after she didn't even run, she was that upset about it, or maybe that impacted by it. So how do you think, like, because if most of the people are corrupt and you go and try to bring the corruption to light, they are going to attack you left and right. So how are you going to handle that?
Yeah, so I mean, look, part of it is I have been fighting in a similar capacity for years for the people. I've been a public servant for years fighting and many times fighting against all odds, right? And So I'm somewhat used to it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, Anita, I think just by virtue of me getting elected, I
Yeah.
think a lot of the wrongdoers and a lot of the bad actors are going to scatter. It's like, when they say when you turn the light on,
Yeah.
the cockroaches will scatter. I think a lot
Totally.
of the bad actors are going to scatter. It's going to be my job to track them down and hold them accountable. But I don't think they're going to hang around. I don't see them hanging around and trying to fight me on, trying to allow them to continue to be bad actors or engage in corruption. I think the corrupt individuals or the bad actors, they're probably going to find an escape hatch and get out and do their best to not be traced. But we will obviously, notwithstanding, pursue them and hold them accountable. But I think just by virtue of getting elected, I think a lot of this corruption and the waste, fraud, and abuse, frankly, I think it's going to evaporate. That's what I anticipate. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to still pursue them and hold them accountable. It just means I think the current activity is probably going to abruptly come to an end.
Well, that will be amazing. So I'm so glad that you're already prepared for that and
Mhm.
already you have your strategies ready. So, what's something about attorneys which is commonplace, but it's totally wrong?
That's a good question, and I think there's probably a few answers to that
Mhm.
question, honestly. But I think a lot of attorneys, frankly, they lose sight of doing what's best. It's in the best interest of their client at times.
Mhm.
And in my case, as an elected official, as a top lawyer, whether it's a district attorney or in my case, it was a city attorney, I think a lot of those individuals who are top lawyers in the public sector, I think they sort of lose sight of what it means to best represent the people. And so I think getting out of touch with the client or losing sight of what's in their best interest oftentimes, again, whether it's in the private sector or the public sector, I think it's more common maybe than people think. And what I've always been proud of in terms of my service and my representation is I have always made sure that I kept the best interest of my client in mind, and I always advanced their best interest. I was always in frequent communication. I always allowed them to make the decisions. I really made sure that when I stepped forward and represented my client, that I was representing their best interest and had their best interest in heart. And whether that was in private practice, like I was in private practice for a number of years before I ran for city attorney in Huntington Beach in 2014, or after when I was in public service, I was always very careful to stay in touch with my client, and in the case of city attorney, stay in touch with the people and be out in the community and understand what's going on in the community. And then that way I could better represent them in my role as city attorney.
Awesome. That's really amazing. And it's true, like many times people think, oh, they didn't get enough communication, or
Mhm.
they might have some, I would say, misguided thoughts, which can be totally resolved if the proper communication was done. So my
Sure.
next question brings me up to your upbringing. So what are the values which you learned from your upbringing that shapes the person Michael Gates is today, that keeps you going on?
Yes, so thank you. That's good. So I grew up in a large family. I had
Oh,
7 siblings myself, and then now
nice.
my wife and I have 5 kids. Really, the focus on the family has been so key, and the focus on God. My family, my whole life, we grew up as God-fearing, religious, and we would pray a lot and depend on God a lot and look for His guidance. But also, in addition to God and family, just the value of hard work, and the notion that if you work really hard in America, that you can have opportunities, that opportunities will be open to you. In fact, Anita, one of the things I would tell my kids when they were growing up is they
Mhm.
would say, "Oh, Dad, I don't want to work that hard in school, and I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that." And I would say, "Look, you're not working really hard right now to get good grades for right now. What you're doing right now by getting good grades and working hard is you're opening up and creating opportunities in the future. So
Totally.
the more success you have in school now, the more opportunity you have in the future. And then that way, when you're a young adult and you have all of these opportunities before you, then you have a choice of what you
Yeah.
want to do. But if you don't work hard as a youngster and you don't work hard in school and you don't get good grades, then doors will be closed for you. You won't have a
Good.
choice. And
Mhm.
so by the time then you're a young adult and you look to see what your options are, you have far fewer options. if you were not successful as a hardworking youth. And so my parents always impressed upon me, look, you will be measured by your work ethic. And
Totally.
so as a young person, I worked hard. I got good grades in large part, but I also just I outworked everybody around me. Even when I was a new attorney, I was in the office, so this might be a little surprising to you. As a young attorney, I would get up at 4 in the morning. I would
Wow.
make sure that I was sitting at my desk at my law firm at 5 in the morning.
Wow.
I would work straight through, oftentimes or most times without a lunch, and I would work until about 8 o'clock at night. So I worked about double the number of hours that other young associates worked. I wanted to be known as the guy who worked twice as hard as every other person around me, whether it was when I was a young lawyer or a student in school, whatever the issue was. And so
Nice.
just the value of hard work and the fact that it creates opportunities for you in the future.
No, that's really amazing. And even though I grew up in India, it's so similar values. Like actually, I have seven siblings too. I'm one of the youngest ones, but I'm the only one here. Others are all in India. But so my dad used to say, like when we were growing up, we had a good life because he was a high level official. But he used to say, if you really want to have the same life or good life when you grow up, work hard, get good
Yeah.
grades, and also like get into the habit of working hard rather than
Yeah.
taking shortcuts, right? Because that
Yes.
takes you places. So
Yeah.
totally, totally agree with you.
Yeah.
So who is
And I
like,
think young people too, they think, well, I don't need to work hard because I know I'm going to be a fireman, or I know I'm going to be this, or I know I'm going to be that. And that's not even the point. You know, I would tell my kids, that's fine. If you think you're going to be a fireman or you're going to be a police officer or whatever, that's totally fine. But you still want to work really, really hard and get really, really good grades, because you know what? When you're 18 years old or 21 years old or whatever, you might change your mind and you might want to pursue other opportunities. But those other opportunities, in order for those to be available to you, you have to have worked hard as a youth, and you have to have gotten good grades.
totally. And if people get into the habit of, especially younger people, into giving their best to whatever they are doing, they will
Hmm.
excel. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what they choose to do or
Yes.
what career they want to go into, they will be the best in that particular field, right?
That's right.
So, who was your greatest mentor?
That's a great question. So I guess when it comes to philosophy and morality, for me, I'm God-fearing. I
Mm.
grew up Catholic, so I've always thought, like, in many ways, I would think to myself, what would Jesus do, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to like hard work and things like that, a lot of it was actually my father. He worked oftentimes 3 jobs
Hmm.
because I was the first one in my family to get a college education. My dad was
Nice.
providing for me and my 7 siblings and my mother without even a college education. So oftentimes he worked 3 jobs just to put food on the table at home. And so I think when it comes to hard work ethic
Yeah.
and just grinding every day and providing for the family, I think my father. So those 2 individuals, I think, when I think of like who I am and what, and then obviously my mother for the family, the importance on the family, the emphasis on the family. So
Yeah, that's so important. Like having a belief, like you said, like you are religious, like it doesn't matter what religion, but having some belief is very, very
yeah,
important for overall, I would say, overall well-roundedness, as well as the work ethic and the family values, because that
yes,
can take people places.
yeah.
And so, what would your friends say about you, which the voters do not know?
So uh, I think they would say I'm very determined,
Hmm.
that I am a hard worker. I do think they would say I've been a very successful attorney because
Yeah.
my record shows
Mhm.
it. But if you're looking for something that maybe people don't know, I will share
Yeah.
something with you.
Mhm.
I was actually a professional artist for 10 years
Wow.
before I went to law school.
Hmm.
So I did three-dimensional computer graphics, both the building of three-dimensional objects and skinning
Yeah.
them, and also animating them. So I did three-dimensional computer graphics for video games and TV commercials for 10 years before I went to law school. So I have a creative side to me as well.
Nice. So, what made you switch careers? Because they are two totally different careers.
Yes. So the art industry or the software development industry. So I was doing art in the software development industry. That was pretty neat. It was pretty entertaining. It was very interesting. But I also felt every day like it wasn't super rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm an old soul, or maybe this is maybe deeper than most people think in terms of reflection. But I felt like it was good, but it was on the surface. I felt like I wanted to do something more rewarding, more meaningful. And
Uh-huh.
so I had thought about law school in high school, and then I put that on hold and obviously was an artist for 10 years. But then as the years went on in art, I started to think to myself, this is neat, but it didn't feel super fulfilling, super rewarding. And so I decided to go back to law school so that I could have what I viewed as a more meaningful career.
Nice, amazing. It's always good to go after what you want because the Steve Jobs used to say, if you haven't found what you're passionate about, keep on looking
Yeah.
because you will excel at that, right? Because
Yes.
you're totally want to do that and
Yeah.
totally passionate about that.
Yeah.
So, what motivates you when things get really difficult?
Um, I guess I feel driven for the greater good. There's a greater
Mhm.
cause. There's something greater than myself out there. And if I could just be a small warrior in this fight to do good, then that's what really motivates me. I saw my parents struggle and work so hard, not for themselves, but for their kids, right? For other people.
Yeah.
And I sort of adopted that where I've always worked hard for other people. I've worked hard for my wife and my kids. And
Mhm.
then when I felt like we were taken care of, then I wanted more. So then I went into public service. I wanted to fight for the people of Huntington Beach. And now I want to fight for California. I believe in this country with all of my heart. I'm a real patriot. I love America. And I think California has lost its way. And so
Totally.
I just feel called, honestly, Anita, I just feel
Yeah.
summoned. I think God has called me to step up, to fight in this battle, to do what I can to return California to America. I know it's hard to believe, but
Yeah.
there are Americans in California.
Yes.
Um, and so I think this is a worthy fight. And so I don't want to sound like a politician because I don't want to come across that way, but I truly mean that I believe this California is worth fighting for. And I believe that every American needs to in some way take up the fight to save America because
Totally.
the concept of America, the free society, the fact that the nation belongs to the people and not the government, all of these things, they can be lost overnight if we don't keep fighting for them. And so these basic principles motivate me. Fighting for America, motivates me. My fighting for California motivates me. Fighting for our kids in California motivates me. So I'm pretty passionate about this.
No, that's really amazing because I was talking to someone else and he was saying that if we don't take proper actions now, California will become like Detroit used to be such a successful manufacturing hub. And look
Yep.
at it now. So
I
it's
know.
going down that way with all the bad laws and the lawlessness overall. So, what's your favorite gem in California? Like, favorite place other than your Huntington Beach, where you are obviously, I mean, you have lived a long time, so you love it. So, what do you think is the best gem in California or best city in California other than your hometown?
So yeah, so Huntington Beach is amazing. The beaches in Huntington Beach are amazing. It's 27 square miles and 8 miles of beautiful beach, beautiful coastline, which is, I don't think you can find 8 miles of beautiful beach coastline, frankly, in any other beach city. 8 miles is a lot. So
Yeah.
Huntington Beach is pretty remarkable. But there's so many neat places throughout California. Just being on the campaign trail and going up to Northern California, I mean, Los Gatos is gorgeous. San Luis Obispo is gorgeous. What I see in Northern California is absolutely amazing as well. So it's hard to pick one place. There are so many beautiful places. In fact, when I travel for the campaign, I remark to people all the time, like, I can't believe how beautiful this city is too. It seems like every place I go in California, it's just gorgeous. And that's why it's tragic that
Mm-hmm.
our state leaders have allowed California to be in such crisis right now.
Totally. So, what's the most underrated and overrated skills in leadership you think, in your opinion, basically?
Yeah, so I think the most underrated
Mm.
uh, skill is, well, I think the most underutilized skill in true leadership is true service to the people. Because I think what we have right now is an arrogance in
Yeah.
leadership, whether it's Karen Bass is the mayor in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
or Gavin Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta in Sacramento. There's such an arrogance. They're so disconnected and
Yeah.
detached from everyday Californians and what's in the best interest of everyday Californians. I mean, just for our Attorney General, for instance, to allow the corruption to occur, even though he knows it's occurring, he's not investigating it, he's not prosecuting it, to allow the corruption to occur, and then also to allow crime to occur.
Yeah.
For it's just such arrogance, and they're so disconnected, they're so tone deaf. So I think they've underutilized or lost their way when it comes to what that good leadership means, being a good public servant, to really serving the community and serving the people of California. So that's the way I see it. I think that's the biggest crisis in government leadership right now.
Totally. So tell me, what's the best advice and the worst advice you have received in your life?
The best advice I think has been to work hard and it will produce fruit. Working hard always produces dividends. It always produces more in the future. It always pays out better in the future than it feels in the moment. Um, I think, honestly, I think the worst advice is, gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think honestly, it's kind of one and the same, I guess. A lot of people have said, "Oh, just trust other people, or trust
Yeah.
that, or trust the system, right? Trust the
Yeah.
system, or trust." I've learned, like, don't just take it on yourself.
Yeah.
Take the bull by the horns, so they
Mhm.
say, and trust. Just work hard yourself and be
Totally.
very self-determinative and apply yourself. Get a good education, work hard, work hard, work hard, and really trust yourself. You can trust your family members, but trusting the government systems, or trusting even frankly, even the education system, it's
Yeah.
up to you to educate yourself ultimately, right?
Totally.
So I guess that would be maybe the worst advice.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I heard like in some of the schools here, they removed the art and music classes in favor of politically educating the
Yeah,
kids. Where, for me, can't understand why kids need that, and kids do
yeah,
need art and music, especially the
yeah,
ones who cannot afford the private tutor to teach
yeah,
them that. So they need that in school. So,
yeah.
what's your favorite productivity hack?
My favorite productivity hack. That's another good one. Um, I have really learned, I guess maybe this is a silly answer, but I've really learned to use technology to my advantage in a lot of different ways. And I think people struggle a lot with productivity. So I've
Yes.
just learned to use technology to my advantage. So that may seem obvious to a lot of young people,
Yes.
but I've really learned in my own way to use it to my advantage. Um, and the other thing too is to work with people, to build a
Mhm.
rapport with people, to make them feel valued, and
Yeah.
to build a team. So we have a great team with my campaign. I've always had great legal teams. Really working with people and bringing them in and getting them to see the vision of whatever you're doing,
Yes.
and sort of building them up and inspiring them and working together. That's also there's a tremendous value in that as well.
No, totally. Transparent communication, I
Yeah,
think, totally I mean, vetoes anything else you can do with your team, because then team trusts you and
yeah,
they are not afraid to share their feedback as well.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
really amazing. So, what's one biggest misconception about politics with common people have?
I think it's that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think a lot of common people just say, well, politics doesn't matter. It doesn't impact my life, or they're just politicians anyway. And look, it's almost like you're going to get out of it what you put into it, right? If everyday Californians got a lot more serious about politics and got a lot more serious about scrutinizing the candidates and holding the candidates accountable when they're running for office, and then holding them accountable even more when they get elected to office, and staying engaged and staying involved, I think we would have better candidates, and I think we would have better office holders. And honestly, I think we'd get a better result in terms of policies and laws and governance, and frankly, government leadership. So I think, people, we need to get beyond the notion that politics doesn't matter and it doesn't impact our lives. When our state government is contemplating taxing us every mile that we drive, That
Totally.
does impact our everyday lives. When we're paying $2 more per gallon in California
Yeah.
than we do in other states, politics does impact our everyday lives. So people need to get beyond this notion that politics doesn't matter. It absolutely matters.
Yeah, totally.
And so we need to step up and embrace the process, even if they think it's whatever, corrupt, or it's imperfect, or it's a dirty business, or whatever they think. They
Yeah.
need to, we still all need as a community to step up and engage, embrace it, and actually make it better, because you will get out of it what you put into it.
No, totally agree with it. Like one of my mentors says that if you don't want to be on the plate on the table, get a seat at the table,
Yeah, exactly.
because then your voice will be heard. So now I have two mini rounds. One is a rapid fire, one is a true or false. Which one should I do first?
Oh, the mini round's fine, or the first one's fine.
The rapid fire. Okay.
Yeah, rapid
So-
fire.
Yeah. So it's the rapid fire is this or that. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no right or wrong answer, just
Yeah,
for fun. So coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Awesome. Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Text or phone call?
Text.
And books or podcasts?
Books.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
In and out or tacos?
In and out.
Awesome. So now we'll go for true or false.
Yeah.
So there is a very common saying that lawyers secretly enjoy arguing at family dinners. Is it
That
true?
liars are what?
The lawyers secretly
Lawyers.
enjoy arguing at family dinners. That they argue.
That's probably true.
Awesome. Every politician practices answers in the mirror.
Practices.
Their answers in the mirror before they go in public.
I would say they do, true. I don't, because I like to be authentic and off the cuff, but I
Yeah.
think most do. I think that's true.
Nice. Yeah, because they don't want to be taken by surprise, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so AI will change the law more than the internet did. True or false?
True.
Yeah. And you can tell within 5 minutes if someone is trustworthy. True or false?
Oh, true.
Totally. Especially people with intuition, right? And then most people underestimate the importance of the local government. True or
True.
false?
True.
Awesome. So fill in the blank. Leadership without dash is incomplete.
A sense of public service.
Or trust. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yes.
So what gives you hope right now?
Gives me hope is I do have faith, because California we are Americans. I do have faith that they will correct course. They will correct course. We will fix things.
And what's one message you would like every Californian to hear?
That I'm personally in this capacity, that I'm looking forward to fighting for you. That to me, I'm embracing this. I love it. I can't wait.
Awesome. And if listeners remember you for only one thing from this podcast episode, what should that be?
That he's a fighter and he's going to fight for us.
Awesome. What other things would you like to share?
Well, I think I said it before. I just love America. I love California. I love the people of California. I can't wait to serve California. I can't wait to return it to a law and order state, because when we do, everybody will prosper. People will suffer less. People will suffer less when we return to law and order.
And kids will get to be kids.
Yes.
Awesome. So thank you for joining us at Happiness Podcast, at Happiness Factors Podcast, Michael. And if today's conversation made you think, smile, and learn anything new, listeners, or question your belief system or relationship with stress, we would love to hear from you. Leave a comment, share this episode with friends or someone who can use it, and subscribe for more conversations on thriving, leadership, mental wellness, and success without burnout. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, stay human, and remember, success is wonderful, but thriving is much better. So keep your ambition high and your cortisol low. Go out there and thrive, not just survive. And with this is Anita from Happiness Factors. ending this episode. And if you would like to reach Michael, reach out to us. Or Michael, is there any website they can reach out to you?
Yes, they can go to gates4ag.com. That's gates, the number 4ag.com. And if you reach out to Anita, she can get a hold of me as well. Thank you.